If your craft room is busy and upset and it looks a mess, then you, my friend, are a quilter. If not, you're an artist. And my sewing living space, we call it the Quilt Stream Studio, is a wreck. I don't know who came in here while I was sleeping, but this place is torn upside down. But that means that we've got a project for you today. Today, we're going to be looking at applique. And I haven't done it in about a year, and it's always on my to-do list because there are so many different projects that I want to try out and experiment with. So if you're like me, it's been a while, or maybe if this is your first time, let's start the show. Let's take a look at applique. Happy Friday, and for some Saturday, but happy Friday, everybody. You made it. It is another day on this earth, and we're together, and we're zooming towards the holidays. It is Friday, November 12th. This is the Quilt Stream. My name is Chip Connor. I am your host. This is where we have the intersection of the passion for quilting and the love of community. So let's get to it. We have a beautiful community, and I could not do this show just talking to a camera if there wasn't actually live bodies on the other end who are paying attention and either in live chat or commenting below. And I appreciate all of you for hanging out with me on this lovely Friday rainy day here in Seattle. So we're going to take Rob's roll call. I'm going to make that an official segment, Rob's roll call. We have Johan of Go Ahead and Make Me. We have Biz. We have Angel. We have Susan, Mrs. Kravitz. We have Tracy from Curly Seams. We have Kathleen. We have Carrie over at the Creative Obsession. And of course, Mr. DeLine, Rob. He is the maker of all things. And we have ELQ. ELQ is finally catching us on time. So welcome everybody, and let's talk about the show. So I have a wish list of things that I would love to make, and when it comes to no sewing machine, maybe I should start with an update. Like, I didn't get the call on Tuesday to bring her home. I didn't get the call on Thursday to bring her home, but you know what? I mean, just put it out there to the universe to say, it's okay. And if it's not, it'll be all right. So we're not doing any sewing. And maybe it's just less things that I have to do. There's still buttons to push. There's still an iron to be pressed. And there's still you guys to chat with. So I'm okay if the machine is not here. But getting into an art project. So applique is one of those things that I don't think, this is the beautiful thing. There is not one way that is the right way. There's no prescription on the best way. Now, there are tips, there are techniques, of course, but there is absolutely no right or wrong answer. You do, you boo-boo, you're gonna make your own art. And I have been madly looking through my inspiration folder, and I'd love to share that with you. So I'm gonna go and open up my personal file, and let me go up one level. And when I go to my computer, oh good, my Alexa, I call COMPTER upstairs, just so that the other one, if it's hearing, it doesn't get confused, but she didn't wake up when I just said that, so all is good. But so on the this is my project folders. These are all the things that are in my wish list. Like, I would love to do some 3D quilts. I would love to do an Art Deco and Celtic. I would love to do a Celtic. I have a couple of books on that. But if I fast forward and go to my posters, this is where I really think you can have some fun with art that is already out there in the world. I have a book that I highly recommend, and it is by Austin Kleon, and it's Steal Like an Artist. And you're going to hear me over and over and over and reassure you that there is absolutely nothing in the world that you could make that is absolutely 100% brand new. It's just not going to happen. So we get inspired. And for me, I love vintage movie posters, and I love abstract art. And so when I go, and I've been on the interwebs, and I've been looking at different movie posters and just like what images could become a poster. I mean, I'm gonna zoom in here, and like I think it would be fun, like even from a movie, from the Beatles. There's some Yellow Submarine, and then I was looking at this one. I think I showed you guys this one before, the Bali, and then we have some Art Deco. Maybe this should go in my Art Deco folder. And then Catwoman. I just love that with the duck. And then here, actually Bali, this one right here, this artist, and forgive me, I don't know his name, but he has done, I think at least 5 that I have found, different versions for this movie. I don't know what the movie is about, and the artwork is just incredible. So maybe, you know, I should put that on my bucket list to watch. I don't know why. So I used to work at my company. The team was really into ducks. Like that was our mascot, these rubber ducks. And I was like, well, you know, put a cat on it, you know, just something layers. And then we have the vermouth. I just think I love all this burst of stars and so on and so on. And I came upon this guy right here. It's the Mac de Netroy. It is an art museum, a contemporary art museum in Brazil. Just, I believe it is southeast of Rio de Janeiro. And this, I love, love, love this piece of artwork. And I just think it would be an amazing art wall hanging. And that's the one we're going to be playing with today. So before we get going on that, have you guys ever done a movie poster? Or I'd love to hear about what kind of art murals or collages or any applique works that you have done. And I wholeheartedly suggest that you hop onto Facebook into the Quilt Stream community group and add photos there to contribute and show everybody what our applique projects you have personally worked on in the past. I would love to see them. Going into real quick, yeah, so when I'm getting into applique, so we can talk about the tools that you're going to need, and then once you've centered in, and like I have, you're going to hone in on the actual design of your project. And I think I'd love to show you how I approached the design first, since we've already visited the computer. So let's keep going with that. It might make sense for you. So let's say you've got an image that that you really would love to replicate, or you would love to run with. So let's say you've got something that started your inspiration, that sparked your imagination, and then you're like, okay, this is great, but I'm going to take it into a whole new direction. And that is the beauty of applique, because you can really start with an initial design, and then it's all layers, and you can keep playing with it. So when I go to, I'm going to take you to Finder. There we go. And not that guy. We want to go to the one on the right. Can I even blow it up, brother? So I've already got this image, and then I'm actually going to, that was saved on my hard drive. And then now I've got the actual photo. Now, I want to think about how this is going to be laid out. So in this case, I would love to keep it same orientation. So The museum is coming from the left, and it's going, there's some boundary, some red boundary of sky on the right. Now, I've got to think about what kind of fabric that I'm going to be using. For me, this is going to be solids, and I really don't have to worry about direction, like if there's a good side of the fabric or a wrong side of the fabric. But I'm going to show you how to treat this. If you want to keep the same perspective and the same same orientation as your inspiration photo that we're going to work with, then my trick is to, I'm going to go and I'm just in a preview window. You can do this on Windows or you can do it on Mac. I happen to be on a Mac. And I'm going to go up into my tools and then I just flip horizontal. And then that way, when I do all of my work now, it is going to be a mirror image. And that way, when I'm laying all my fabric down, ultimately at the end, it's going to have the same perspective, not the mirrored image. And so once you've got your image flipped, and you can do any, like if you wanted to resize it, if you wanted to skew it so that maybe you're going to make it odd proportions, whatever you're going to do. Doctor up your photo first. I'm going to leave mine the way it is, other than just flipping it horizontally. And then I'm going to export this as a PDF file. And then I have already done that, but we're going to do it again. So we're going to call this the museum and save it to my desktop. All right, then I can close my photo, and then now I'm going to go to my PDF that I just created. And now you see we're in a PDF view. And the only thing that I really have to do is I'm going to go to File and Print, and hopefully the screen will show up. Perfect. All right, so the only settings that I want to make sure that I'm working with is that ordinarily it's going to go up and say, oh, you're going to print this out as the standard size. And then I am going to be working with 8.5 by 11. That's our standard paper size here in the US. But I'm actually going to go into poster because I want to blow this image up, and this is where it's trial and error. I promise you, if you just keep playing with it, ultimately you're going to eyeball it and you're going to say, that just seems right. So if I go to, let's say I'm going to double the image to 200, be careful, do not hit enter, because enter is actually going to make you print. Don't do that, just tab. And now you get a preview. We're in poster mode, and now you can see what it would look like, how many sheets of paper it's actually going to take up. And I know that I want it to still be bigger. What happens if I go to 300? All right, now I'm doing what? That's 3 times 4, so we have 12 pages. I think that's I'm sorry, 15. That's 5 pages. So that's a bit large. So I'm going to scale back and say, what happens if I go to 250? And now I'm going to be taking up 9. And what I like is that between the nine tiles that we're going to create, I'm also imagining a border that it's going to create, which actually kind of works out great because I know that I'm going to add a border to this particular art piece. And now I can see, okay, this is basically going to be the size of 9 3x3, 9 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper, and that works for me. Now, 2 other things that you want to make sure that you have clicked. One is your cut marks, and that's these little dots. And then you also have labels. Labels are going to appear, and I'll show you on a printed out version. But your labels are going to tell you, hey, this is page 1 of 9, or I'm sorry, column. I think it goes by row and then column. So it'll be 1 1 1 2 1 3 2 1 2 2 2 3 3 1 3 2 3 3. So you'll get these little marks to show you how to tape it together. That's all you need to do. So just remember, scale it, hit tab, you're in poster mode, and then you want to make sure that you have these two things clicked, and then go ahead and print. I've already got mine printed up, and I've already taped it together. So this one is, I think it's going to finish out at 19, roughly 19 by 15 if I'm not including the border. And let me see if I'm getting all of this. So yeah, so I printed some 2 copies because you're going to want to. I have printed half of it in color and half of it in black and white just to see what the difference would be. But this is basically going to be the finished size that we're going to work with. I used, when I was printing it out, I used those foundation sheets that I misordered. They actually came in handy. I could have used ordinary letterhead paper, but I was like, well, I got this, so why not use it? So it's this perfect for paper piecing. And let me see if I can take one out. I don't think I have another one out. But it is pretty, it is lighter and more transparent than regular copy paper. And the nice thing is you could really easily see through this if you're wanting to tape and use the window for a light box, or like here I have a light box. And all you do, it is so simple. I'm going to show you how we put those together. One thing I would say about this paper going through the copy paper, or I'm sorry, through the printer, maybe it's my printer, maybe printers hate me. I've always had a struggle with printers, but it doesn't like, the printer doesn't like this paper as much as regular copy paper. It is much lighter, so you may find that it's printing irregularly, or it may move or adjust. So take it with a grain of salt. But let me show you how to put them together. So this is going to be the bottom of my image. And in the upper right-hand corner, I don't have the needle cam plugged in. In the upper right-hand corner here, you really can't see it, and I apologize, but you have these marks, and this says 1,3, and basically that's telling me that this is the first column, and yeah, it's the first column, third tile. So it's calling, and you'll notice that this is backwards because I flipped that image horizontally. So we're working right to left, and this is 3, 3, 3, 2, and this is 3, 1. Now in the upper corner there is a little registration mark, and it's basically, it looks like a T. And what you want to do is, there's one on every corner, so on all 4 corners, and you're going to want to just lay that on top and get your Scotch tape and just tape your pages together. Now, what I was saying earlier is that I noticed on my printer, a couple of the pages actually printed, like I could see the way it printed, that the whole thing shifted and it really wasn't square as it was being fed through the printer. So I'm actually looking at the design itself, not just the registration mark. I'm paying attention and paying more importance to the design that is going to need to match up. So I use the registration marks as a guide, but ultimately it's the image itself that is going to need to line up. And I would say you want to err on the side of more tape is good, just because as you have this and you're working with it and manhandling it, it's going to shift. And then as you're cutting, you may not have a good secure join between the two pieces of paper where you're going to be cutting through. So you may find as you're cutting that you're going to need to probably keep taping, and I would totally recommend that. All right, so once you've got your entire image, then you need to really think about how are you going to possibly approach replicating this, because ultimately this is going to need to get attached to some fabric, and then you're going to do some cutting, and we got to make sure that we have a game plan. So when I'm looking at this image, and this is upside down, what for me, I'm looking at, I have the museum itself. That is one big huge piece that I could possibly cut out. Then in the background I have some mountains, and it's actually, I don't know if it's an island. I think it's an island that is in the background, and this all the way around is actually red. So I'm going to use maybe some red fabric as my base layer and my fabric that I'm going to work onto. I'll applique the building itself, the mountains, and then the only other thing I have is the shadow that was cast from the sunlight from the building onto the concrete. And I think like this one makes it a pretty approachable first project if this is going to be something you've never done before. So if one recommendation, one other thing that I could add is that depending on how many pieces there are, you may want to make 2 copies of this. You may end up taking 5 because you're rough cutting, and you may be overlapping a cut because you're making sure that you have enough to applique. So you may end up wanting to make more than 1 copy. Depending on how many elements are there, let that be your guide in how many copies that you'll need to use. All right, so then I have that smaller one, and I'm gonna show you on the shadow nose. We're gonna end up cutting this shadow out, but before I do that, I think it's best that we decide on some colors. So I'm gonna show you, let's go back to the image, and here we go. All right, so I've got this image, and I know that I'm gonna want to have some red here. I've got the building as white, and then I get to decide, is the ground, this concrete, is this gray, is it brown? Like, they really only used 1, and I actually think the mountains and the sun, I'm sorry, the window panes, I almost think that they're the same color. So you have the building, the windows, and the island or mountains, whatever that is, and then you have your window frames, the shadow, and the concrete. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 colors that you're dealing with. So as that reference, I was doing some curating of my stash, and you just might have a bundle of fabric that is some solids that you can work with. This is a great time, depending on your project, to pull out some scraps. But for me, I totally needed solids, and I don't have a lot of bigger pieces of solids, so I went to my fat quarters. But the thing about these fat quarters, I was thinking they don't really show, even though it's a solid, they don't really show a lot of texture. And so I thought, okay, let me go to my connecting threads. And I love connecting threads, these blenders, because they have so much more texture. And this, to me, is more like concrete. That, to me, whether it's for the building itself or for the ground. I mean, like this texture, I really thought that would be fun. Now, unfortunately, in this bundle, I didn't have it, but you know me, I have backup. I have backup. And so I found that I could use this. I'm going to use this as the ground, the concrete. I am actually going to go white for the building itself. And then I have this red that is very striking, and it's just really bold. So you can imagine I have the red of the background, I have the white building, and then I have the concrete on the ground. And then I'm going to use this for the window panes and for the window panes and that island. And I'm going to actually show you. I keep calling it an island. Let me go to Chrome, and I was even looking up the definition of applique today. An ornamental needlework in which pieces or patches of fabric in different shapes and patterns are sewn into a larger piece to form a picture or a pattern. So that is applique. You guys know what it is. So let me go back to Chrome, and this is the museum, and it is the Nitrio. Nitrio, I think I'm saying it right, Contemporary Art Museum. And y'all, gang, this museum is so amazing. And you can see here's that background of the islands. I keep calling it mountains. The mountains are in the way background, and then kind of in the foreground you have this little island that looks like there's a big house there or something. But Louis Vuitton actually used this museum for a fashion show. It really has inspired other artists amazingly. I absolutely loved it. But one of the fun, amazing things that I found out about this museum is that they actually had an installation where this guy was doing painted quilt blocks. And I was like, this, talk about synergy, that the world is colliding in my art project. Like, how amazing is that? I just absolutely love that. But you can see, like, this this building is so beautiful. Let me go back, and there are other images. I was looking for different posters if they were out there, and like, this is just beautiful. This museum. You can see why I was inspired. So anyway, so going back to my fabric choices, we've got the red that's going to be the background, and then we have the white, which is going to be the building itself, and then I have the light gray, which is going to be the concrete on the ground. And then one thing that I've noticed is that if you're really looking at a photograph, the closer things are to you, the lighter they're going to appear, and the further away they are, the more dark they're going to appear. And so even though this might seem like more like a road or like concrete, I thought this would be best to have that in the background, because it's going to show perspective and a little bit of more depth. So that's why I'm going to use that for the island or mountain, whatever you want to call that, for the background. And then I haven't quite decided what I'm going to do what I'm going to frame the windows in, whether it's going to be black. It might be black, because that might be a little bit too much, because I don't have black anywhere else. I also have some gray, and did I pull it up? Yep. So I have some charcoal gray that I thought might be good for those windows too. Then it's not so like, oh my gosh, your eye is going to be drawn to that black, and I really don't have black in the project, so maybe I'll stay away from that and just use the charcoal. All right, so now I've got my fabric picked out, and now I want to grab some heat bond, which this stuff is amazing. I get the light. There's some that is ultra hold or something like that. You want, I promise you, you want to stay away from that because it has glue, and the ultra hold could actually break a needle. And we're going to want to be able to sew and stitch around and do some more quilting. And if you were using the ultra hold, it could break a needle. So don't do that. But you've got a wax paper on one side, and then you've got your glue on the other. And for our project, I have already, and I can't believe I did this, I had just cut this right for the size of the building. So I already did this one's ready to go when we are going to trace the building onto the paper. And then I'm going to get a piece ready. Save your scraps. One thing that you're always going to be cutting odd shapes with your applique. This may be something that you think, oh, I could throw that away. No, save this, because you never know when these are going to be just the right size for your project. So first thing I'm going to do is make a decision. So I'm going to go with the shadow on the ground, and the shadow, let's go back to the picture. What did I promise myself? Let's go to Finder. Finder, where are you? There we go. So that is one of the darkest pieces right here in the shadow of the building. So I think what I will do, I actually might use this charcoal. I think it might be a good color to go with. Then this could be just like that in the other image. This can be the same color as the window panes. So what we're going to do is first we need to see how big is our shadow. So if I look down, this is the shadow that we need to work with. And as promised, actually this is even more than enough. You can see right through this. I'm using my little light box, but this is more than we actually need. So I can take some paper scissors, paper scissors? Scissors for paper, and just cut off basically what we need. And one thing that you're going to want to do is make sure that your fabric is ironed, or actually pressed, because you don't want the glue to give you a permanent crease in the fabric. And when I pay more attention to the size of the fabric that I'm going to need than I do the glue. I know that this was more than I needed, but I like to not cut them the same size. Invariably, if you have the paper side is up and it's going onto your fabric, if you have some that is going outside of the fabric, the glue, you don't want that getting onto your ironing board. So I always like to cut my my paper with the glue a little bit smaller. But all you have to do is put that glue side down onto the fabric, and then the directions, who reads directions? I actually had to look it up this morning, because if I'm dispensing advice, I want to make sure that it's accurate. But it says to use a medium iron, and just on every place that the glue is going to be, 2 seconds is all you need on each one. So if you again, no steam, and if you overheat it, the glue may actually wear out. So I've done that. And now I'm going to do some quick rough cutting. Huzzah. And now I can come to, oh, I did it wrong, gang. I did it absolutely wrong. I should have traced the glue first. Don't do what I say, do what I do. So, all right, I messed up. So you want to make sure that you're tracing it first, then put it on your fabric, then you're going to be in business. All right, we'll see. We'll see what everybody, the comments on here. That is hysterical. All right, so no glasses for me, and let's go with the down. There we go. All right, so I can see through pretty well, and literally I'm just tracing. I have the glue facing down, and then on the back I'm just tracing, and you can take some liberties if you need to. Don't feel like you have to be exact as the original unless things are going to overlap. Now, you see here that the shadow actually, this is the base of the building, and the shadow is showing you that it goes around the building. But I know that I'm going to place the shadow down first, and then I'm going to place the building. So I can actually just make this a straight line instead of doing that curve. And then you can go a little longer if you want. So once you have that, then, my friends, it's time to go. Now, I don't think I want to mess with that again. I can use that on another project. Actually, I'm going to use that. Yeah, I can use that on another project. All right, so I'm going to give this some love with the iron. Same thing before. And then I'm going to put this right here, and then we're ready for business. Now you can also decide, you can decide if you want to do this step by step. I'm sorry, I'm going to give you the camera again. You can decide if you're going to do this as you go, or if, and lay the pieces. If you have everything mapped out, I would suggest getting all your pieces traced and then attached to your fabric, and then cut out. I'm a big fan of assembly line. Or you can just do it as you need it, and you're designing on the fly. So now I have my shadow, and then I just cut it out. So that's when I'm going to go to my fabric scissors, and there's two ways to do this. You can either allow yourself a little bit of overlap, or you could do it exact to size. I'm going to go just, what do I want to do? I'm going to do rough edge applique, which means I'm not going to turn it over ultimately. So I'm actually cutting it true to size. And what I'll end up doing is, once everything is on the fabric, then I will, I'll do some edge stitching. And what's nice is that I know Fizz is in the midst of a huge project. I heard her say earlier she felt like she was being called out. Where was it? She hasn't gotten actually any of hers done, but she's doing this amazing project that is all applique, and it's got swirls, and it's got color, and it's really amazing. But this is going to be, for my purpose, it's going to be raw edge applique. And then if you happen to get outside of your tracing line, remember everything in this project could be pretty negotiable on like the shadows or those mountains. I think the building itself is the only thing that really needs to be precise. But as far as like these little shadows, no problem. All right, and then you can see if I have my red fabric, one thing that I'm going to do with this project that I thought about approaching it is, once it was printed out, then I could figure out what my dimensions are. And so I basically have two backgrounds that I'm working with. I'm going to have this red background, and then I'm also going to have the background for the concrete. And the building itself, this is helpful, the building itself spans between both the red, so this will be red, and then this will be that gray concrete, and the building actually goes in between that. And so you have to do a little bit of measuring to decide where you're going to piece that, where you're going to put your placement. So if I'm looking at my ruler, and if I go from the bottom, I would say that the line that's going to go across, and I'll have to wait till I get my sewing machine, but it's going to sit roughly at 9 inches. So I'm going to come down, I'm going to have a piece of gray fabric, and then I'm going to need to come down so that the bottom of the shadow is going to be, what is that, 3.5, 2.5. Yeah, 2.5. So I'm going to do now a piece of gray, and I said I was going to use the lighter gray, and this is still connecting threads and one of my favorite fabrics. Okay, I'm done with the light box for a moment. And how can I do this easily so that I'm not truly wasting too much? I know Scott Cawley, who of Scott Cawley Design, he just finished or is in the process of quilting his RuPaul paper piecing project, and I would think that would make me so nervous after you've done all that work. And he is so talented. And I just lost my, here it is. Okay, so I've got what was the measurement of their, so we're going to say that the base is, what is that? That's roughly 8 inches that we need. Yeah, I'm going to say, I'm even going to call it 9 inches just to be safe, because then I'll have seam allowance. So all I really need is 9 inches to work with. And This is, although this is a backing, I use this for so many of my projects. So you're saying, that's a lot of fabric. It is. Okay, so I said 9 inches, and we should be good. Does it scare you guys, like thinking, oh, he's messy? I don't like being messy, but I am. Okay, so we have my rotary cutter around here somewhere. There we go. Okay, that's all we needed. That's going to go there. We don't need any of this. And then, what is our width? I think it said 15 inches. So the width is, no, this is 19. So we've got that. And I'll be able to, so this is going to be square at the top. That's really what I'm paying attention to. And let's go to 20 just to be safe. I have a smaller ruler. Cool. So we've got our fabric, and now, if you remember, I was saying that you may have your fabric that there's a right side or a wrong side, and that's why we did everything mirrored, but we've already accounted for that when we reversed everything. I am throwing things everywhere. There we go. No, that was the bad one. Where's our good one? Ay, ay, ay. Did I just throw that away? 1, 2, 3. Ah, here it is. This little piece that I lost. All right, so the fabric that I was using does not have a right or wrong side, and we're going to count that we want this relatively straight from the bottom. So if I'm looking at the down, if I'm looking here, I said I wanted to go 3 inches, what was it, 3.5 inches below. And we want to go from the top when we know that this has already been squared, so I'm pretty good there. And then from the side, I already made this a little longer than it needed to be, but I'm going to go 3.5 inches. So 3.5, and that's to the bottom. So my fabric needs to go here, and then I'm going to pin that into place. And then, of course, I did it upside down. So we're going to say 3.5. No, I did it right. No, I did it right. 3.5. And that's basically where it's going to go. So now that I know that I'm going to be okay with my placement, I can take my glue off. And what I would suggest is that if you're creating, and I'm just doing one piece here, but if you're creating a whole collage, you may want to pin everything in place before you take that paper off. And that way you are just rearranging. You can pick it up, you can put it down, but once you glue it, it's pretty well in place. So now I've got that positioned. I've got my glue now exposed. It's facing the fabric that I'm going to lay it down on. And the last commitment that I have to make is the actual pressing and making it permanent. All right, so far we've got the bottom of that shadow getting ready. And again, it's only 2 seconds. It doesn't need to be any longer. And I've just made a commitment. Awesome. Okay, so now you'll notice that it is sticking on the piece well, and little by little we're going to add the next sections. I would put the building on next, and then I'm going to no, actually the next step would be is I'm going to you would take a seam between the red and this gray, make a seam, and now you'll have that red background, and then you can just start layering your pieces. All right, let's take a look in the room. And so I love this. Is it ELQ? That's me. The mess gets messier and messier until it suddenly becomes something. Yeah, that is very true. I mean, then all of a sudden it just turns into this amazing make, and then Angel says, if it was not messy when I craft, you wouldn't think you wouldn't think I was doing anything. Uh-oh. So no, and did I say that, Fizz? Did I say now it's the do's and don'ts of applique? So I want you guys to feel that, you know, there is no right or wrong way, but like, I know how I like to approach it, and take it with a grain of salt. So, are you calling me a rookie? So this is Carrie. She says, rookie. You know, is that me? Am I the rookie? Yes, I'm the rookie. There we go. Okay, and Elk says, let me remove that. And Elk says, yeah, it's elk. It's pronounced like elk. All right, so I'm going to take this into, we're already at an hour. I'm going to take this into Friday, I think, because I'm going to work on this. And I have Johan, who is hysterically laughing at me on Monday because I was actually doing some hand stitching. But I'm actually going to take my red fabric and I'm going to create the background, and I'm going to continue working on this by hand. And I have to do that by Monday. So yeah, I think by Monday I'm going to continue onward. But this should be a good place to get you going on your applique. Again, there is no right or wrong. It's just there's some things that are helpful. The one thing that I could add, if you're raring to go and you say, hey, I've got some projects, let me give you one other piece of helpful hints. Is that you could go to a kid's comic book and find images. You could go, I found on Amazon, there is this watercolor design that you could have blown up if you took it to a Xerox over at Kinko's and really had them blow it up. You could do it in whatever size, But the thing with this is that you've got a lot of small pieces. But if you get one of these watercolor kits, it comes with a canvas. So if you wanted to do true to size, you could actually applique directly onto the canvas, which is already pre-printed, and it has all of your numbers. For me, I have to take my glasses off to see the numbers. Maybe you'll need bifocals. But of course, the larger you go, the less hard it is to see, and the less it is to get around these small pieces. But if you're going to do something that is very intricate, I want you to make sure that you get a very small pair of scissors that have a very sharp fine tip. Then that way you can really get into those pieces. If the pieces are smaller, and maybe you don't want to use your fabric scissors, and you don't want to use this big rotary cutter, you can get a precision rotary cutter, which I have a love-hate relationship with. The thing I love is that this is a 14 millimeter, and I believe this is either 45 or 60, I don't remember. This is the 45. I have a 45, and I also have a 60, but this one is only 14 millimeters, and really the blade is so teeny tiny that it really is helpful to get around those hard to get pieces. And if you're, it just makes cutting so much better. The thing that's a little struggling for me is that when I just can't seem to find with this particular brand a happy medium. Either I've got it so that the screw is not going to fall off as the blade is turning, and as I'm moving it, it's either too tight and it won't move, or even if I just like ever so slightly loosen it so that the blade will turn easily, then all of a sudden the screw falls off, and I can't get a happy medium with it. So I still use it, I just struggle with it a lot, kind of constantly fiddling with the tightness on it. And then there was another thing. So this is the color for that watercolor set, and if you want, it comes with paintbrushes, and you get your little art kit. So you may decide, I'm not going to applique, I'm actually going to do the watercolor, but it's fun. These are really fun, and basically it's like paper piecing in that there's an order and there's all these pieces that you put together, but it's already done and figured out for you. You just have to cut all those pieces. This one seems like it would be a lot of work, and I've actually seen one person, it was like a year ago, I saw it on Instagram, somebody tackled this project, and it really turned out amazing. Loved it. So Susan says, would it be overkill to cut out everything first out of scrap paper to play with placement and measurements? Never appliqued this way before. Absolutely. In my opinion, if you're creating something that is unique and your own design, absolutely, you could do your pieces. And again, it depends on whether you're going to be doing your raw edge or if you're going to be doing needle turn. So for me, I'm doing raw edge, so it really makes it easy. I don't really have to think about the size. I just have to kind of layer. But with that, with the needle turn, you're going to do all those. And I don't know if you're going to want to do your whole project twice. But definitely, you don't have to glue it down and make it permanent until you take that paper off and then iron it. So yeah, I would definitely go with the fabric that you're intending to have in the final project. But I mean, it's up to you. If you want to first start on some scraps and then have just experiment with the technique itself before you commit to anything. And then Tracy has a follow-up for that you could make a placement guide out of clear plastic trace the design onto the plastic, and then slide the cut pieces of fabric underneath it and position it that way. Yeah, so if you got a piece of, you can get the vinyl, clear vinyl by the yard over the big box stores. That is a really, really helpful tip. And then, yeah, and then so on this point that Johan says, yeah, copyright is not an issue. So if you're, for me, I'm actually taking someone else's art and making it into my own project. I'm not really, I'll give them credit when I show it off, but I will not sell it because it's not really my art. I don't know. I mean, like, you could get into, if you change it, the placement and the arrangement and everything, more than 10%, then I believe, and I think that's when it comes into like fashion design. If you're working with an existing pattern and you're changing it more than 10%, you are clear to sell that pattern. But ideally, you're not making these for reproduction, and you're not making any money out of it. Let's see if there's any. So the style, so Carrie, you asked, what is the style of art? I love the look of some of the posters you found. So are these in the ones that were in the Finder? Let's go back to Finder. I was just looking at, originally, I said, hey, give me movie posters, and then give me poster, and I would search modern art. Yeah, it would, let me get rid of your comment. There we go. There we go. So yeah, I just was looking at all kinds of searches. Like, I may be searching for one thing and then all of a sudden I get sidetracked and I find another, but a lot of them are, oftentimes I search after movie posters as my starting point. And then from there, I end up seeing things that are near related or pretty much on the same thing. So for me, like, the one that initiated was this Bali picture, and I absolutely loved that one from the get-go, this one on the right. And when I looked up the posters on Chrome, let me go to Chrome. There we go. And then I went to Bali movie poster. And that's when I found out there was actually more than one style. Let me go to images. So this was also by the same artist. This is by the same artist, the one on the right. And then this is the one I found and I saved. This is another one I found and saved. So actually, if I go to my Pinterest, and I go to my pins, and I went to posters, where did it go? 9 pins. Hello. There they are. So these were all the ones that, and this is the same artist. All these Bali ones are the same artist, and he did a whole series of them. And I would love this woman who's holding her shoe. Here's the one with the women, 2 women, and actually no, I think this is a gentleman's shoes and a woman's shoes, high heels, and I just love this series, and I thought it would be fun if I could tackle one of them, and then little by little, just like have all 3 or maybe 4. I think they would be amazing. But yeah, I like to look at movie posters, and I think they're great. Especially if you could do like a Casablanca, or you do like this, famous poster. I think that would be a good genre to be for art quilts. All right, we're going to take one last look at the room, and Okay, so Angel says she uses steam seam. It is helpful because it sticks, but you can peel it off and move it around until you iron it down permanently. Absolutely good tip. And then Johan is saying travel posters are often a modernist style. Oh, and Johan, he did have a funny thing he opened us up with is, where was it? It was here. Applique, you stay. I thought that was hilarious. So that is it. I'm going to wrap it up from here. Thank you all so much for joining. And I'm going to say happy Friday to you all. I hope you can stick around come back on Monday. And if you haven't already, it would be great and lovely if you could like and subscribe. It really does help the channel. We're nearing 100. So I'm so glad to have you all. But thank you very much for joining, and I hope your weekend is great. I look forward to seeing you Monday. Bye for now.